Hey YouTube, what's going on? Thanks for checking out the Straight SRT8 YouTube channel where we discuss all things SRT8 related. Now in today's video we're going to discuss how to get a pretty cheap, effective, and easy to install horsepower. Now typically in the car world those three don't exist. So you don't get good horsepower for a low cost. Everything has a cost and benefit to it. But for this video actually you can get pretty good horsepower for a pretty cheap cost. So behind me I have my 2017 Jeep SRT. And I have a throttle body here. So this is my actual stock throttle body that came OEM with the vehicle. And then here is a ported throttle body. So I actually reached out to Fastman. And you guys can contact him at thefastman.com on his website. And just as FYI, he has no relation to this video. He isn't sponsored or anything. Just a great guy to work with, makes excellent products. I want to give him some due justice there and explain how his process actually works and why it's beneficial to your SRTs. So, stock throttle body, it's casted, right? And then some portions of it are machined. So for this portion, your inlet, anything that's casted is a little bit rougher, which means that as the air is passing through the casting, it creates some air turbulence. And then of course, as you break down into the machined area, which you can see through here, it's machined halfway through. That's a much smoother flow. So your stock bore is actually 80 millimeters on your ID. So edge to edge on the ID of the throttle body is 80 millimeters. And then the back end is around the same. A little bit, it actually kind of gets smaller here, or I mean gets wider here, tapers down, and then gets smaller. So the portion and the immediate inside is 80 millimeter bore. Anyway, for the stock throttle body, that's a little bit restrictive. So our vehicles are like air pumps. The more air you get in, the more air you get out, the more power you get, air to fuel ratio. The easier it is to pull in air, the easier it is to push out air. Again, the more horsepower you get. That's why changing out your air housing, your air filter, boring throttle bodies out, changing out your headers, your exhaust. Those modifications result in easier to get air in, easier to get air out, which means more of your net horsepower goes to your wheels versus being used as an air pump. So in the SRTs, your first major restriction is your air filter. That's covered in another video that I posted. And then your next thing in line from that is your throttle body. So why is the throttle body restrictive, and how can this new throttle body by Fastman make it easier to use from your vehicle standpoint, and how to increase horsepower? Like I mentioned before, the bore of your throttle body, the amount of air you pull in through your vehicle is dependent on obviously different restrictions. So for the throttle body, the maximum amount of air you can pull in through this 80 millimeter bore is whatever you can pull in through the 80 millimeter bore, right? A wider bore means you can easily pull in more power. But by having a wider bore, you actually can lose some low end torque if your bore is too big for your requirements for your engine. So in our application, you actually don't want to have a crazy big bore. So some guys may be swapping out their Trek, or maybe buying a Trackhawk throttle body for their SRT. If you do that, you're actually not going to see very big gains because the throttle body bore is too large for what your engine actually needs. Now, if you had a supercharger in here, you had a turbo, you had cams, you had major engine work, anything crazy like that, it's going to obviously allow more air to get pushed into the engine, which means you need to have a larger bore to accommodate that. If you try and oversize this bore to your engine, you're actually going to affect your torque on your low end, and cars are going to pull as hard. So that's why Fastman offers different size applications for your throttle bodies. So again, your stock bore 80 millimeters. The one I purchased is suited for the engine mostly being the way it is. If you do an air intake, you do the headers, exhaust, you want to go with the standard bore offering. So the standard bore offering changes your 80 millimeter to an 82 millimeter at your main bore. And then on the back end, on your outlet, Fastman actually tapers this and matches it to the OD of your intake manifold. Now that's pretty important because if it's not matched properly, you're gonna get some air turbulence right here, and air is just gonna spin around instead of going right into your engine. So having this OD matched to your intake manifold is pretty important. And then again, increasing this bore is also pretty important to allow for more easier airflow. He also removes a portion of this in this butterfly valve right here. It's kind of hard to do with one hand. Hold on a second. So in this butterfly valve, you can see there's that needle in the middle, and it creates 4 millimeters of space on your left and on your right. So when you have wide open throttle, when you're like this, your maximum throttle position, getting the maximum amount of air into your vehicle, this needle right here actually is pretty restrictive. So one of the options Fastman offers during both bores is to remove this needle on one side. The way you actually gain 4 more millimeters of space, and you get easier airflow through your throttle body that way. Now let's discuss cost. What's it going to cost to have my throttle body bored out? Well, there's an inherent cost for your actual throttle body itself. So these components depend on year related. If you have a Durango, a Charger, Challenger, whatever it may be, there are different costs from your OEM to purchase a throttle body. The average cost is about $250 for modifying it, and then it's about a cost of $180 for the actual OEM component itself. So Fastman offers two options. You can either take your OEM throttle body and take it out of your vehicle and give it to him and have him process it. It takes about 2 weeks, but then you can't go back to stock for whatever reason you may want to. The other option is to pay him the extra $180 for your throttle body. Again, plus or minus right there. Plus $250 for mods, plus $12 for shipping, for a total of about $442 depending on what vehicle and year you have. And then you can have your stock one like I did, and you have your bored out throttle body. So for $400 you get pretty good gains out of it. So now I want to kind of show you guys how to install a throttle body. It's very simple. I'm going to give you a video on the inside looking out and show you how it actually matches the bore to your intake manifold, and how it actually looks different on the inside of the vehicle comparing your OEM to your bored out throttle body from Fastman. So let's get to it. Okay, so first things first, to install your throttle body, you want to remove your clips over here for your air intake, and then use an 8mm ratchet. Take off your rubber hose. So we're going to go ahead and do that real quick. And then also remember your IAT sensor has to get removed as well. Make sure you don't damage that guy. And if you're wondering why mine's over here, in a previous video I actually relocated my IAT sensor from being over here to being over here. And that's covered again in a different video. So we're going to go ahead and just loosen all this rubber hosing up. And pull out our vacuum line here. And pop this off. Very, very simple. Alright, so now I have my flashlight there. The first thing you're going to notice is that my space between my ID and my OD right here is quite thin. Alright, so let's take a look at my stock throttle body. You see the difference there? It's massive. So this ID to OD portion right here is much, much thinner. In terms of smoothness, it is incredibly smooth. So it's obviously more restrictive right here, where it hits the butterfly valve, and then right here it kind of bores out. Much smoother here in comparison to your casting. And then again, thickness-wise, much thicker there, much, much thinner right here, all the way around. Then you get to your butterfly valve. You notice right here that needle is missing. So again, let me offer a comparison. There's your OEM, and there is your aftermarket. Again, so that's a 4mm difference. It's going to add up way more space to have airflow through the vehicle. Okay, this is probably really hard to see, but inside here, right back there, is where my intake manifold starts, or my throttle body ends. You can see that entire radius of that diameter right there is very, very smooth. And that's very smooth because Fastman bored it out to match it perfectly. And that's why it's a perfect fit back there. So not only are you paying for a bored out open end, removing that 4mm shaft right there to allow for more airflow, but you're also boring out the back end where it interfaces with the intake manifold. So all in all, it's a very, very efficient system and a better way of handling your airflow compared to your OEM solution. And then to go ahead and remove this, again, 8mm screws. You got 1, 2 up top. You got a third one over here and a fourth one right back there. You loosen your electrical connection right here. Pop off your stock one. pop on your Fastman. Again, it's OEM, just bore it out, and then you're all set. When you turn the car back on, Fastman gives you instructions. He says put it in auxiliary position or accessory position. Wait until the chiming's done. That actually allows the car to talk to the throttle body because it is going to be different. And then you start your car up and it runs like normal. When I did mine, I had absolutely no problems whatsoever. Perfect fitment the first time. Perfect working with the car. There was no check engine lights thrown, nothing crazy like that. It was an awesome installation, awesome process. So again, that shows you comparison between your OEM stock and your OEM bored out from Fastman. Again, recommendation is to go with a nominal bore, 82mm main bore, unless you're doing serious work to the engine like cams, and then in which case you can go to an 84mm. And if your cam is aggressive enough, or if you have forced induction or you have a turbo, you're going to want to bore this out even further, in which case we're talking bored out intake manifolds to match it, which usually comes with your application, and so on and so forth. But anyway, guys, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed the content. You know, I had a hard time trying to show inside to match the ID of the throttle body to the intake manifolds. I apologize for that. Everything I talked about today, discussing the Fastman bore for your nominal bore and for your oversized bore, it's all going to be located in the description below, along with his website. And then again, costing, which is dependent on the vehicle and the year, make, model, so on and so forth. But if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them below. I'll respond as soon as I can. And I have a ton more content on the way, guys. I know I keep saying that. You know, life's getting busy. My videos are getting further and further spaced apart. But I'm still trying to do it at least once every 2 weeks to get you guys more content and get us going and kind of boost the subscriptions to this channel. Because the money I make from this channel, I hope to put into the vehicle again to give you guys better and better content. So the more you help me out, the more I help you out. And we keep growing the channel that way. Again, any questions, let me know. If not, I will see you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in.